Hello and welcome to the Plat podcast. Today we're talking about RLCS X, Fall North American Regional Event 2, Stage 1. It's Vancer. With me as always is Wally.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
And we've got, a pretty heavy
We got a
plate here.
banger here, don't we?
Today we're going to be talking about Group A and Group B. We're going to be talking about the Eunited Roster change. We're talking about predictions for next week. We're talking about North American grid and European grid. So if you want to hear any of those, stick around, and I'll probably put some timestamps either in the description or in the comments. And if you want to listen to anything particular, you can jump ahead to that. So right off the bat, I guess we're just going to start with Group A.
Yep, sounds good.
Uh, first place finish from the Peeps. Not exactly what we'd expect considering all the other teams in here being like Space Station and G2, but they made it on a 3-0.
They did. The teams they played were in super high quality, I would say. Except
Yeah.
Continuum did make it through, and they went to Game 5 for them, but the other two did not make it, so they didn't play any of the big boys, but winning 3-0, solid. So they just are done for the day, immediately moving through, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, and their third round matchup was against Zookeepers. I still don't know anything about the Zookeepers team, but I mean they went 4 of the 5 games went to overtime. Not every single win went to them. Two overtimes each. And so game 5 overtime goes to the Peeps. Zookeepers lose and then proceed to lose to G2 and Continuum to miss out. And if
Yeah,
they'd won that overtime, they would have been in the number 1 spot, which would have been a crazy upset, especially since
it
they
would have
beat
been.
Rogue in the second round.
Yeah, they did. That would have been pretty quiet. Wild. I was gonna say crazy and wild. So next, like wild.
Oh,
That's
I thought you just
good.
said quiet. They were
No,
pretty
no,
quiet.
no. But the zookeepers are never quiet, and they're all with the animals and stuff. But um, the Peeps were pretty solid. They've been that team that it's kind of reminds me of Top Blokes. They're not. I don't think they're on that level, but it's like a team that doesn't have an org, and then they're still kicking butt
Yeah.
in their region. So it's pretty cool to see that an org is not obviously necessary. And if you just get good players, you can play well. And then we know that the Peeps roster is already good because when you have Gyro and AJ, who were on Pittsburgh Knights, and then they bring in Illusion, who is
Yeah.
also on a RLCS team, then you know they're going to be pretty good. It's just I don't think they get enough credit sometimes from other people. So it's nice to see them win out their group strongly and then just cement themselves for next week.
Yep. And then the other team going 3-0 was Kansas City. Another pretty big surprise, taking down
Yep.
much stronger opponents in XSET, who did make it through, Space Station, and G2. So obviously they both made it through as well.
Yeah.
So G2 was a big one, but even more shocking was their win against SSG.
Yeah, the SSG win was pretty insane, especially because it was a reverse sweep. SSG winning 3-1 and 3-0 to start off, and you're like, oh, we know it's just like them coming through again, showing their complete dominance, and then Kansas City score 11 goals in the next 3 games,
Yeah.
and only let up 2 um, during 3 games to SSG is pretty insane. And they just played so well. They just like ran them out of there. It was complete domination in every single game. And you and I both were just in so much awe of the one goal that we believe it
It was beast
was.
mode.
Well, I know who sent it off the backboard.
Rapid, I believe.
I think Rapid like clipped it off his own backboard, sent it all the way down to like a little bit above the top left corner, and then Beast Mode already jumped from midfield, on the midfield line, and then proceeded to backboard read that dunk into the top left, and it was just absolutely insane. And that was also in Game 7, just to kind of just
Game
cement that.
5.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
meant, and just put them through.
Yeah, that was the
To
the
be
nail in the
2-0.
coffin for sure. Because I think that was to make it like 4-1, and at that point it
Yeah,
was like the game was over, and they knew Kansas City had just upset SSG. Which like you think of like, oh, it's one loss, but like That doesn't happen very often to SSG. That was their first loss in regionals for RLCS X. Granted, this is only the second regional event, but still, no losses through. They're Swiss in the first group stage, and then the second group stage, and then obviously didn't lose in the playoffs. They have only 3 other losses the rest of the entire year, and those all came in the grid. One to G2, or sorry, two to G2, and one to Rogue. So,
Yeah.
and I think Rogue then went on to lose to Envy, who won it all, and then I think the 2 lost to G2. G2 won both of those grids. So, like, they're losing to just, they're losing to G2 when G2's winning everything. They lost to Rogue, which is one team they said they're always sort of like, they said that was one of the teams they have to watch out for. And now Kansas City, out of nowhere, it seems like. So they're looking really strong going into day 3.
Yeah, that was a big one. I think another um so they made it through on a 3-0, and then we can also look at the one they did beat G2 as well. So that was a
Mm-hmm.
big one to see them. And it wasn't even that one didn't even go to game 5.
Yeah.
That one went to 4, and they just finished them off right there to go to 3-0 on the whole day and just move on. The one series that I thought was really cool on Saturday was the G2V version 1 series.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that one was pretty. It was way closer than a lot of people would have suggested, considering you wouldn't think it's like version 1. Everyone is still expecting them to do better than they have been doing recently. They just aren't living up to what they everyone thinks they're capable of. Um, and especially because G2 just won the grid 2 days prior, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But you'd think, all right, off that, you're not gonna mess around with version 1, and everybody in the on the table was just like, yeah, I think G2 is gonna smack about version 1, and then they won the first game pretty handily, and then version 1 grabbed the next 2, and then it's looking real dicey for G2. And you and I were both watching it where they're almost at a 5-minute overtime,
Yeah.
and version 1 could have just stole it right there, but then G2 squeaked out the next 2 to win both of those 2-1, and then win the series. And what was really funny during that one was, I think it was Johnny Boy and Shogun casting that one, and Johnny Boy was talking about how he talked to Rizzo, and he's getting sad about how everybody's like nice pass Rizzo, or nice save Rizzo, and never nice shot Rizzo. And so they kept talking about how Rizzo wants to score some more goals to get that. And I don't think he scored in one goal that entire 5-game series. So he had to hit the post a good few times, and it was like, Rizzo. And I think he missed a couple like really easy ones as well. And they're just like making a lot of jokes about how he wants credit for nice shots and he couldn't score in a 5-game series. So that was pretty funny. But then G2 is able to beat version 1, and then they then played Kansas City, but then were one of the teams that beat the Zookeepers, so it's connecting to everybody we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then they got to go through on a 3-1. But version 1, on the other hand, did not recover as well to the G2 loss, and were not able to make it through. And was there another interesting one that didn't make it through, Vancer?
Yeah. I was thinking like version 1. They got their first win against United, and then lost to G2, and kind of thought they'd bounce back. They got a nice sweep, but then got swept 2 times in a row. And I was thinking the team they beat in the first round was going to really help them kind of keep afloat. And they had 2 chances to make it through, and they lost. And the team they beat was United. Um, and United, losing to version 1, then beating a lower ranked team. Then they got the misfortune of running into SSG, beat a lower ranked team, and then in round 5 they played Xset, who just went out and made a roster move to pick up T Carell. They dropped Alraz and picked up T Carell, and he played so well in this series, or like
He
through the
did.
day.
Yeah.
T Carell was, like it seemed like anytime there was a big like solo play or one like big moment from Xset, it was coming from him. And so it was really exciting to see a roster move pay off so instantly for a team like Xset. And then they go and they beat a
It's
team in E United, and they think, Oh, you guys made a roster move and beat us? Well, we're gonna go make a roster move ourselves. And just the other day have now gone out and they've dropped
Hoxer.
Hoxer. Thank you. I had a burp in my mouth there for a second. They go out and they drop Hoxer and pick up Tristan from uh, Akron, the Akron collegiate team. And I know a lot of people like don't equate the two, like, oh, college and RLCS aren't quite the same level, but Tristan is like I'd say the top. I don't watch a whole lot of collegiate Rocket League, but from what I've seen, he's like one of the top players. I've seen any game I've seen, it's usually Akron or LSU or something, one of those top teams I see playing, and he's always on top of things. He's a very Justin style player, both in his name being Dot Tristan as opposed to Justin. Like it's pretty funny the similarities, and he's just really strong mechanically. I didn't think Hoxer was a poor fit for United, but I think they're now looking to get a more offensive heavy team because Hoxer is a strong defenseman, like in a sense where it's like I remember Cloud9 looking to replace Torment with Hoxer, just like because they're both very similar players, but just to make a change. And so to do that and swap with Tristan, who's a high offensive player, and you already have Wonder Mike and Ajax, like this team is starting to look stronger and stronger offensively. And so hopefully for United and United fans' sake, they can kind of turn this around. But I'm very excited to see kind of how Tristan plays with them because United has not been good recently. They didn't make it out of the top 32 now for both regionals. In event one, they lose to like SSG and Charlotte Phoenix and Kansas City, so they're running into like they're losing to good teams and beating bad teams. So they needed a way to like get a quick jump. Like again, this time around they beat Morning Light, Flashpoint, and then they lose to like version one SSG and X set. So it's like they're beating weaker teams and losing to stronger teams. In the grid, they're not playing well. They're usually one of the first teams out. Outside of week one, they haven't looked very good. But weirdly enough, one of the teams I feel like they consistently beat in the grid was version one, and of course that seemed to be the deciding factor this past weekend. If they lose to version one and then go 2-3 on the day. If they beat them, there's a chance they go 3-2. But yeah, so I'm very excited to see how this new United roster goes, and if not even for United's sake, I'm really excited to see Tristan break onto the scene because as someone who's just seen some collegiate, anytime he plays, I'm excited to see him. So more Tristan is always nice for me.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of college Rocket League. You know more about him, but from what you've told me about him, he seems pretty nutty. So it'll be pretty exciting to see a couple more offensive players put together. And I mean, it's not always a bad thing to kind of put more offense on it because there was a lot of talk about, and I'm not comparing them to SSG, but a lot of their talks was like SSG is going to be pretty offense heavy with it, and there's like a lot of people want the ball for that team, and then you can see how well they're doing right now. So
Yeah.
sometimes you don't always need specific roles. You just got to see who can fit well together, and it doesn't have to be a midfield offense
Yeah.
and defender because I think those are important things to have, and you might have someone who's a little bit stronger in those spots, but Rocket League's such a different game, and it's like if you want to be an attacker, you also need to make saves whenever you can and do literally anything all the time. So if you're only good at one thing, you're probably not very good. So you have to be really well balanced. So, and I think I don't know. It always feels like, from what I've seen, it's like if you are good offensively, then you usually have a nice tenacity to go get the ball. And it's like basically the same thing on defense where you just got to hit it out of there.
Yeah.
But on defense, sometimes it's like you want to sit back and do less with it, and you want to just be in the way of stuff. And that's not how offense really works. You got to be in there. So I think it's at least my opinion on how it works. Not how it works, but how transition of if you're good offensively, you could work better to get defensively easier than you're good defensively to get offensively better.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. A good defense is a good offense kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. So I think it's just so hard to having roles is always like iffy in my like whenever I think about we always joke about the two of you and me making teams of like who would work well together, and it's like I mean if they're just all nutty then I think it'll be funny, so that's all I care about. And then But I think the roster move definitely needed. I think that's a clear thing.
Yeah. So I'm very excited. We'll see kind of how they go. And now they have. Obviously, we won't get to see them next week. Or I guess the next two
We could
weeks
in the
because
grid. We could
United
in.
will get to. Well, yeah, I'm talking about regional events, but we will see them
I
in the
know.
grid. So, and it'll be pretty apparent for the grid because, like I said, they're pretty frequently like one of the first teams out for North America. So if they're able to beat like any teams consistently, like that'll be a nice step up for United. And yeah.
Yeah, I think we can move on to Group B.
All right, on to Group B. And so the two teams making it in 3-0, NRG doing what NRG does, 3 sweeps and they're done. You can play a grand total of 25 games potentially. Um, and they decided to only play 9 this weekend. So good on them. They made it through no problem. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot to mention from Group A very quickly. Uh, the perfect round 2. Every single game in round 2 went to best of 5. Every single game went to game 5. I just thought that was interesting, and I forgot to mention it, but that
It's
was
pretty
really
wild.
cool. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
So yeah, NRG goes 3-0. The other 3-0 team was Nefarious, and that no one expected this. I'm still at a loss for words, as you can tell. They go out and sweep Jamal Jabari, who made it through. They beat Pittsburgh Knights in a 3-1, who made it through, and they beat Envy in a 3-1, who made it through. And both Pittsburgh Knights and Envy, both Jamal and Knights made it in 3-2, and Envy made it on 3-1. So their only loss was to Nefarious. So they were looking good, and especially in this Envy series, because Jamal Jabari, we weren't sure how they were going to land. Pittsburgh Knights is a strong team, but they're not a top dog. But Envy is one of those top 5 teams, top 3 teams, and Nefarious like showed them no respect. It seems like they were going after every ball, challenging everything. I thought every player on Nefarious had like some standout performances in every single game. Adam was hitting some unbelievably nice shots. He had like a redirect in one of them, and like he was playing insane. All 3 of them were just popping off. Um, Jay Wismont was an excellent player down in the RLS for a couple seasons there. Now he was playing excellent. Buddy was playing great. It was just fun to watch. Go watch that team because it's like that next generation of like young players coming up and showing their strength. And that was a fun series to watch for sure.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one because I think I was watching football. But
Nice.
I knew you were talking about it, and you're just in. You didn't even just talk about how it was wild that Nefarious won, which it is, and you did bring that up later. But you were just talking about how exciting that series was. So that's always one of the. And I was waiting for you to bring it up how you every time during one of these you're like, oh, go watch that one, and it's always pretty. It's that one was the one I thought you'd bring up, which I got to go back and watch that one. I think that'll be pretty fun to just see kind of how Nefarious plays Nefarious because I
Yeah.
never really watched them. And then beating Envy is pretty massive, as we both know. The one team that I thought was pretty interesting was that I got to see a lot of was Pittsburgh Knights. I think we both like watching them.
Oh
I think
yeah.
we're both big Kinsey fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just how exciting he is. I think the Alpine Pittsburgh Knights series was a lot of fun to watch. Um, I thought that was a real nail biter to go to Game 5, and it was pretty even throughout. Where it was like you couldn't really tell who was going to win, and every game was super super close. So it was never really one team got any real advantage. It was just a really hard fought game, and then like series, and then the Pittsburgh Knights 72 PC series was much less closer. Basically, besides the 172 PC win, it was domination by Pittsburgh Knights. So that was a nice like excitement thing to just
Yeah.
see so many goals go in. Like the last one was 6-0. So it was just goals on goals on goals for the round 5, which was a lot of fun. I just really like watching Pittsburgh Knights. I'm talking about it so much where I love watching players that are really good at ones play on a threes team because it's like they are good at ones, and then when they're able to translate that to where they don't just hog the ball a lot, but it's like they can make special plays with it because they know that they can try extra stuff because they know someone will be there, and then they get to go show off what they do by themselves with other people around, which is so much fun for me to watch. But I thought Pittsburgh Knights was a real excitement for Group B.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying the Knights play. I'm because anytime I get to see them move on, I'm excited just because I can get to watch them more. Because I feel like they have a really interesting dynamic where I'd say like the 1-2 punch, where it's like the two players working together a lot, are Rodoko and ZPS. I feel like a lot of times it's like them passing to each other, like infield passes. But then anytime there's a solo play, well, I guess all of them can kind of do solo plays, but most frequently a solo play comes out from Kinsei. Or like if like one game is a hard carry, it usually feels like it's Kinsei. But any other game where it's like a close series or a close game where like someone needs to come in clutch and show up, it's usually like the other two. So at any point, like anyone can play really well for the Knights, and so it's nice to get some variety because I feel like those are always my favorite teams to watch. Are the ones where there's like a variety of ways to score from a variety of players, and I feel like they just do that really well. Um, so yeah, Pittsburgh Knights made it in on the 3-2. Some teams that didn't make it because of that win, one being 72 PC, uh, which I think they made it to the second round last time. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember. Another one being Omelet, which they've been kind of lackluster in RLCS X, especially after the offseason they had, where they really impressed a lot of people. Finally, of course, the Sonics getting so close to being the number one seed, and then getting swept by Energy, only winning one game against Frontline, and then getting swept by Adept. So I feel like right now Sonic's issue is last season Shock was I think they awarded him Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. It for sure Rookie of the Year,
I
but
know they did rookie. I don't know if
yeah,
they did play.
he like he showed up clutch in every game five. It felt like for the Sonics, scoring many overtime goals, like just putting the team on his back, and he's just not doing that this year. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
He's the most quiet on the team, despite being the best, like the only player last season. So either they need to get Shock in order or something. I don't know. Once Shock starts playing well, I feel like Sonics will kind of come back into form again. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's tough though to be based on one guy, and we don't want to. You don't
Yeah.
want that to be your team's dynamic. We've been
Yeah.
talking about that a lot recently. The two of us, where it's like, if Justin doesn't play well, NRG doesn't play well. Clearly, if Shock doesn't play well, Sonics don't play well. If First Killer doesn't play well, Rogue doesn't play well.
Well, it's weird too because it's not even they don't play well because I feel like they usually play fine. It just I feel like they don't win. They're at least they're not a guaranteed win. Like if Justin's not playing well, it's like ooh, it could go either way. But if Justin's playing well, it's like Energy 100% of the way. And I feel
Yeah.
like Rogue is in a similar stance where it's like if First Killer's playing really well, I'm going Rogue against pretty much any team. If he's like sort of iffy, it's toss up. If he's not playing well, chances are Rogue isn't going to win.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it's tough. Like
yeah,
that's a lot of teams basing themselves on. It's not even them trying to base themselves on one guy. It's just how it happens a lot of times, and
yeah,
you don't want to see that. And then that's why BDS and SSG probably are number one for both regions. Like even if Mark by 8 or Reddles or Typical don't play well, because those are three of the better ones. And like if one of those players on one of those teams doesn't play well, the other two are so good that they can just
yeah.
go for it and still win a series, even if the other one's still not on like tippy top of their game. But if like we talked about last week when Mark by 8 was just something different, they were unstoppable versus anybody. So
And
I think
it's weird.
teams trying to find better fits. I think that's still something that a lot of teams have issues with. I feel like it's like all these players are so good. There's a reason they're here,
Yeah.
but it's like finding those fits is a tough
Or
part.
just the play style that complements all three players. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what Energy isn't doing right now. And I don't like because all three of those players are top 10 players, I think, at
Oh
least
yeah,
in North America. But I just feel like
probably.
since Squishy has gone to NRG, I just don't feel like I've seen him. I can't think of a single Squishy highlight off the top of my head right now
There
from
was
his time on
one double
NRG.
tap that I remember. That's basically it,
Yeah,
and that's been in weeks of gameplay. So
exactly. So it's like I don't know what like they're playing well and they're winning, but I just feel like I don't know. Like he was on a team where he was the lead role, and I feel like he does better as the lead role. And now that he's taken kind of a sidecar to Justin, it makes him less effective as a threat. And I don't
Yeah.
know if they need to implement him more into the attack, if they need to implement more of a team play. Because also, I feel like I don't watch Energy very often, simply because, like I said, they played 9 games. 3 weren't streamed. I was definitely probably asleep during round 2 because I didn't wake up in time. So it's like
Hmm.
I don't get a. And then if since they're all 3-0s, even if I saw the series, it was only 3 games versus 5 for some of these other teams. So I feel like that's also another reason. Maybe I think that because I just don't. I'm not. I don't have enough of a pool to grab from, and then also not watching the grid nearly as much as I should. Um, but I don't know. I want to see them play well because I know that's a team that can play well when Justin isn't playing well. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But we could move into our prediction for next week.
Sure. One last thing before we go. I just want
Yep.
to big shout out to Zabumafu, the greatest team name I've seen. I didn't catch any of their games, but I noticed after the fact that there was a team named Zabumafu. So I hope they're back for next regional.
That'd be a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah. Now we can go into our predictions if you want. So we can do a 3-0 team and a 3-2 team.
Yeah, and this time I'll do it correctly.
Yeah.
I've got it written down and I prepared myself. You want me to go first?
Go for it.
So my 3-0s are pretty lame. I went NRG SSG.
Okay.
I didn't really think that, even though anything could really happen, I just feel like SSG doesn't really lose because they've lost 4 times in
Yeah.
the whole RLCS so far. So I feel like they'll turn it back on and go for it. And then NRG swept and made it look so easy. So I feel like they're just both gonna go for it. And then they
Also for 3-2, I only need one team for both of these. You don't have to give me every team finishing in those places. By the way.
no, there's 2 3-0s.
No, I know, but I only asked for one.
Oh, I thought you just wanted both of them
No,
because there's
I
2
mean
of them.
both work. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'm not rattling off my whole top 8 like
Yeah,
last
you're
time.
getting better. Next week it'll be perfect.
I mean, it's basically the same thing if I
Yeah,
name
yeah,
2. And then
yeah.
my 3-2, I've got Kansas City, Envy, and Pittsburgh Knights. Those are my
Okay.
3-2s. I think those 3 deserve to move on, and then I don't think Kansas City will be as good as they were this past weekend, but I
Yeah.
think they'll be good enough to make it through. And then I think Envy, I don't know. I just feel like Envy's so iffy sometimes. Like if Turbo's carrying the team, then I mean they could easily go 3-0, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, and then, but I don't think that he will be able to do that, especially in the stage 2. I feel like he'll wait until the playoffs to do it because he's loved winning
Oh yeah.
stuff. And I think Pittsburgh Knights is something that we just talked about it. Just like so much excitement watching them, so I just want to see them do well. And I thought the teams they lost to, it's like they lost to Nefarious and Alpine, and they barely lost to Alpine. And then Nefarious was just something different this past weekend. So I think they could definitely squeak in as another 3-2. But I think those are my predictions.
Okay. For me, my 3-0, I think I have Energy as my 3-0. Their first round is against Jamal Jabari, whereas Space Station is against Envy, and those would be my 2 teams to go 3-0. So it's like, if I had to pick one, NRG, just because they have the easier round 1. And for my 3-2 team, I picked Alpine. To me, it came down between Pittsburgh Knights and Alpine, much like it did last time when I was picking between Barca and Magnifico, where it's like these are 2 teams that I think the first round is going to be a big decider, because either
Yeah.
the winner will be able to stave off and probably lose 2 games, but because they got the win at the start of at the start of the week or at the start of the day, they're going to finish because they have that 1 game advantage. But at the same time, the team that loses could be playing weaker teams and then come up through the bottom. The reason I say Alpine, though, is the teams that are playing the first round, you see Space Station Envy. That means one of those teams is going to start 1-0. And I don't see Alpine or Knights beating Space Station or Envy. So I think Alpine will beat the Knights, and then Pittsburgh Knights might run into Envy. So that's why I have Alpine winning that game 1 against Knights and then holding off and then finishing in a 3-2. So those are my 2 predictions. NRG 3-0, Alpine 3-2. And now we can go on to the grid because I think that's everything for regional events.
Yeah. So the NA grid, we already touched upon it, where G2 got their first grid win, I believe. I don't think anyone else they had won it prior.
No, they did in week 4.
Uh, I didn't think they won.
No, they won it 1 week.
They
I
got
thought
swept in week 4.
they did. Did they not? Oh, I guess that is their first one.
I
Oh
figured
no,
it
no,
was.
they won week 2. They did win week 2. That's what I thought.
Um, barely.
Yeah, they beat Space
But this
Station in
one,
the final for week 2.
this one was pretty a pretty solid win for them, where they oh my god, I can't find it. the Them beating NRG is a really nice one, and they beat Space Station right before, and they just beat Envy right before that. So they I remember I talked to you about it. Like the teams that they had to play, in the playoffs were insane. They had to beat Envy, Space Station, and NRG.
Yeah.
3 of the biggest teams in NA, and they had to beat them all, which is just shows the quality right there, and it just really shows that they are playing really well. And that's why it was really kind of surprising that they weren't able to go 3-0 for Group A,
Mm-hmm.
and as we saw, neither did SSG. It was KCP and the Peeps, so it was pretty interesting to see them get the 3-0 there. But yeah, it was a great showing by G2. Basically, that's all I can really say about it.
Yeah. I didn't, as usual, didn't really watch a lot of the grid, but thing to note, in this grid, once again, United beating version 1. Version 1 being the first team out, and then beating United in regionals, and that was, and then also Rogue were the first ones out.
Yep.
In terms of like they got swept by Alpine and then unfortunately lost to Space Station. Who? Oh yeah, I forgot. I totally forgot about this because I wanted to mention it. Space Station losing to Charlotte Phoenix in round 1. That's shock. Oh, so I get okay. Sorry, I missed one loss that Space Station had when I was talking about them earlier. They had one more loss, and it was to Charlotte Phoenix, to go in through the lower bracket. And then after beating Space Station, getting swept by Alpine. Like Alpine was looking scary going through that, sweeping Rogue and then sweeping Phoenix, who beat SSG.
And then they
So
got 4-1 by NRG to start
yeah,
off the
and then
playoffs.
yeah, so that's rough.
That's tough for them because I think that's a big break. Like that's a thing that I think is pretty prevalent in the grid is just how much time. Because there's also, I think,
Because also it's
do they go one at a time for quarterfinals or not?
no, I think that they all go at once. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then
There's still
also,
a
of
lot of time
course,
between them.
their one win in that quarterfinal was their like default win because they came to the upper bracket, so they basically got swept.
Yeah.
But game 1
But
was a 7.5 minute overtime.
Yeah, and that
That's
probably could
brutal.
have turned the tide on that, honestly.
Yeah,
But then NRG did win 6-1 after that, so
yeah,
oof.
yeah. That's
But
painful.
we can move over to the EU one.
Sure.
This one I did watch the final.
Okay.
Um, and the final was so exciting watching BDS and Top Blokes, and then that went to Game 7. It was so back and forth between the two of them. First 2 games went to overtime. It was just so much excitement. Archie was on his game, and then Mark Bite was also playing super well with Monkey Moon, so it's just a super fun series to watch. Oxygen making it really far again, but getting swept. Both semifinal games were sweeps, so that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Top Blokes swept Guild and Oxygen get to final, and then they lost in 7 games.
Yeah.
But yeah, another Dignitas once again getting
First one's
knocked out instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly, Giants were also knocked out instantly. That was really surprising.
Yes. Getting
They got swept by Solary,
Yep.
and then lost Game 5 to him. Basically, what Rogue did.
This game, this just looking at this bracket, it's super weird the teams that are like how teams are losing, because you look at like Vitality beats Endpoint and they get swept by Solary, and then Solary loses to Barca. Like Giants, Solary swept Giants and then Vitality, but then couldn't beat Barca in a best of 7 with a game advantage. Like it's super weird. BDS sweeps Guild, and then Guild goes and beats Dignitas, Vitality, and then gets swept by Top Blokes. Like they're beating really strong teams, then immediately turn around and getting swept the other way. It's top Lokes 2 sweeps and then unable to beat BDS, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, a lot of that happening. And my boys Solar, I put them in top 10, and they've proven it, beating Giants and Vitality. So I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know about you.
I mean, I don't think that proves anything, but yeah.
You don't think sweeping Giants and Vitality proves anything?
I mean, it's like 2 series. I wouldn't just mean that they're amazing.
Oh, I just mean top 10.
I mean,
I was
KCP,
glad I put them in the top 10.
I mean, Charlotte Phoenix beat SSG in the grid, and then they went 1-3 and lost to Zookeepers, 8-Bit, and Plat.
I'm also still just saying top 10. I'm not saying top 5. I'm just saying Solar is top 10 team.
They're iffy. They're on the cusp.
Clown. You need to get on the. I don't even like Solary that much. I'm just like kind of like indifferent about them. But I mean, like they're pretty good. They're a good team.
I think they're bad. I'm just kidding. They're not bad. They're pretty good. I don't think they're top 10, but yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. So
we can agree that they're good.
I think
top 10 is where they right there, around the 10 spot. Good. Yeah, I can agree with that.
And hey, I don't mind a disagreement because it just it means one of us can be proven wrong and one of us can be proven right down the road.
Yeah.
Regardless of who it is. So it's nice that we don't agree because then if we're not agreeing, that means there's some like competition. There's some true competition in both NA and Europe. So I think next week we have to do a top 10 for North America next week, surely.
Yeah.
So I think I might start working on that now. Actually, no. I think the grid is coming. I'll do that after the grid. I'll make my top 10 list and then get ready to see yours. But yeah. So that's everything. Rattled through the grid. We went on about it. It's funny how long we can go on about the grid despite not seeing any games. At least for me.
Yeah, I watched one series.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's everything for today. This has been the Plat Rats podcast. As always, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Bye now.